like to hear you speak on the terms liberal and conservative. You obviously use conservative in a much more narrow sense.
Well, I use it in its dictionary sense.
It's rather ambiguous
Yeah.
in terms of what is to be conserved.
Right. Okay. I mean, the terms of political discourse are at best not models of clarity. And in fact, liberal and conservative are interesting in that they've just shifted around totally. What is now called conservative in the dictionary sense was called liberal in the late 19th century. There's a whole set of ideas called classical liberalism, represented by a lot of Enlightenment figures. Some of the most important, for example, are Wilhelm von Humboldt, who inspired John Stuart Mill, and Mill himself, and it goes back to Locke and that tradition, classical liberalism. Nowadays, that's called conservatism. It should be. That's what should be called conservative. When the term is used properly, that's called conservatism. It's opposition to state power. In fact, this is a lot of what the part of the underlying conception of the United States government was before it became a state capitalist system in the 19th century. If we go back to the 18th century, the conception was basically this. We imagine a society of essentially equal people. Now, in fact, if you look, it was equal white male property owners. But if you put that aside, a society of equal people, roughly equal, and what barriers are there to liberty? Well, slavery, the church, and the state. Okay? So therefore we got to weaken state power, weaken church power, and end slavery. Ideas of that sort are basically classical liberalism developed with a good deal of sophistication. And a modern conservative, like say Taft, wants to cut back state power, to cut back, say, state intervention in the economy. Same with someone like Mark Hatfield, to preserve the Enlightenment ideals of freedom of expression, of freedom from state violence, of law-abiding states, and so on and so forth. That's roughly modern conservatism. There's almost no conservatives these days. As I said, Hatfield's one, I'm another. You can find a couple of others. The way the term conservative is now used, it's used for people like Reagan. That is, people who want to expand the power of the state, to increase state intervention in the economy, to protect the state from public surveillance, to destroy civil liberties, to tear whatever there is of law to shreds, and so on and so forth. That has nothing to do with conservatism. Now, what about liberalism? Well, liberalism, as I said, used to mean what I just described. A modern term, liberalism, however, means something quite different. Since, I don't know exactly when, certainly since the 1930s, liberalism has meant a commitment to the use of state power for welfare purposes. So New Deal type measures and so on. That's very different from classical liberalism. In fact, what it is it sort of sheds off towards modern social democracy. Okay? Now, you can make some sense out of these terms. They all have some sort of vague meaning. But the new meaning of the term conservative, as applied to the Reaganites, that has no meaning at all. These guys are the opposite of conservative in any sense on any issue you can think of. They are fanatic statists. They believe in state power and state violence, an expansion of state power. They believe in lawlessness, It has nothing to do with conservatism. The fact that, you can even use the word conservative to refer to this is astonishing. As I say, if Robert Taft heard this, he would turn over in his grave. These are all the things he fought against. Any conservative fought against.